Welcome back to another episode of Sacred Wild Man. My name is Roy, and today I'd like to share something interesting that I discovered recently from a conversation with my business coach. And this is about breaking past growth edges. Now, I think for a number of you who are watching this, you have likely heard in some degree that when you're pushing against a growth edge and you're about to break through, usually you will experience some sort of anxiety or fear. So I think most of you have probably heard that or even can relate to it. Like, yeah, there are those times where when I was ready to break past this limit, whether it was asking a girl out or asking for a promotion or doing something that you had always wanted to do but were scared to do, there was that initial sensation of energy buzzing and anxiety, nervousness, fear. But I haven't seen anyone talk about this other signal that you're actually about to break past a growth edge. And that signal is exhaustion. Most of the time when I have heard people talk about exhaustion, it's usually about burnout. You're doing too much, too fast, all at once. But from my recent experience in a conversation with my business coach, I've recognized that exhaustion does not always have to do with doing too much, too fast, all at once. Sometimes that exhaustion is a signal that your unconscious, subconscious mind is coming up against a ceiling, and it requires more energy to break past that ceiling. Kind of like when an electron jumps up to a higher energy level. It needs energy to make that jump. But because it's not there's a lack of energy, but it's because of the unconscious or subconscious blocks in the way we think, where when we look at where we want to go, there's this sense of impossibility, or, I don't like that. I don't like what it would necessarily require to get there. That's what causes the exhaustion. And when that is cleared, you actually have a surge of energy that comes in to assist you in moving in that direction. So what happened in this conversation with my business coach is, he offered some suggestions, not just suggestions, but he's like, yeah, let's get you doing this because this is the next step in your business. And, rationally, everything made sense. Yeah, of course, this makes sense to do this. But there was an internal disagreement where when I heard his recommendation, I thought, but that just doesn't work with the way I've been doing things. I have a particular style in which I like to do this. And what you're telling me is going against what I've been used to. So I brought that up with him and we talked it through. There wasn't too much of a, needing to clear up a pushback. It's like, hey, what's really going on for you here, Roy? It was just kind of a little bit of a conversation. And I thought, okay, yeah, I get it. But we ended the call and I still felt exhausted. I was like, what's going on here? For some reason, I wasn't willing to just take that exhaustion and say, this is a clear indicator that I shouldn't do this. I should just tell my business coach, hey, I get you think I should do this, but I'm going to do it my way that I have been doing it. I thought, let me work with this some more. What happened that there's such a deep amount of exhaustion from this simple call? And after doing some thinking, I realized I think I'm hitting up against a growth edge. And it has nothing to do with what he is saying is unreasonable, or it doesn't agree with my personality or how I like to do things. In fact, I can challenge myself. In fact, I ought to challenge myself with what he told me to do. And so then I thought, okay, what is the source of the exhaustion then? Why is it here? Because clearly it's providing a signal. And through some further reflection, I recognized the exhaustion had to do with me imagining what it would require of me to get to where I want to go, but from the same framework of how I have been doing things. So let me use another story or metaphor to illustrate this, because I think it goes into the mind better, especially the subconscious and the unconscious mind. Imagine that you have always been used to brushing your teeth right-handed. You do it well. You do it without even thinking, right? I can guarantee all of you who are watching right now, you brush your teeth unconsciously. You're not consciously thinking, okay, move 2 degrees at this angle to brush this tooth and then over here. No, you just do it automatically. But if I then said to you, hey, for the next 7 days, you can't use your right hand. You have to use your left hand to brush your teeth. Or if you're left-handed, you have to use your right hand to brush your teeth. Now there's a little bit more of conscious effort. Now, from this standpoint of using your non-dominant hand to brush your teeth, there's this mental effort that starts to happen within your mind of, okay, well, now you're asking me to do something which is still like brushing my teeth, but you're asking me to do it in a different way that I'm not used to. And so there's kind of this resistance that comes up because our unconscious mind prefers simplicity and routine. That's how we take it in. You drive the same route every day. You're not consciously thinking about it. Your unconscious mind has taken in like, yeah, this is just how the route goes. And now you can have a conversation with somebody and still get to where your destination is. But the moment there's now effort and things have been shifted around, there's some resistance from the unconscious mind. Well, like, this is different. This doesn't feel the same. This isn't quite right. And maybe we should stop doing it because it's so much more easy and simple to do it the way we have been doing it. That's essentially what happened. And so when I recognized that, I thought, okay, what would I need to change about what I have been doing in regards to business so that I get to where I want to go? What can be shifted? And so one of the things that I noticed was when I write some posts, when I post on Instagram, I like to take time to write my posts or blogs. It's a act of love. I'm drawing out from within me and expressing with words what I want to communicate. And I'm used to doing that long form. And so to think about posting more on Instagram or posting more in my newsletter, YouTube, or wherever it is, caused exhaustion because I thought, well, if I were to do it from how I have been doing things, and let's say I'm supposed to post every day on YouTube or Instagram or Twitter, wherever it is, in the way I have been doing things, that's exhausting. I can't imagine myself spending the amount of time that I have been writing things that I love and pour a lot into and doing that every single day. So then the adjustment that happened was I thought, well, what if I just make things shorter? As much as I love to deliver long-form content, what if I shorten things a little bit? So instead of a long paragraph for each of these slides or carousels or blog, what if I shortened it? And then I just delivered things on a more frequent basis. And all of a sudden, it's like something clicked. A new neural pathway formed. And I thought, I could do that. Yeah, you know what? This could be fun. This could be fun to play around with. And then I noticed this sensation of, tenacity. Like, you know what? I deserve to put out as much energy into this as, is required to get to where I want to go. Let me test the limits of what I have known, right? Because what has been, I'm familiar with, and it's gotten me to a certain degree of success and good results, but there's also been some stuckness, right? I'm working with this business coach because, well, there's more that I want to do. So I owe it to myself to challenge this growth edge. And with all these shifts, key ingredients being a reframe of mind of how I can do things differently, and in fact do them in a way that's like, here's possibility. This is actually quite interesting and exciting. Paired with this emotion of excitement, tenacity, like, yeah, I'm going to go for this for, just let's say a limited period of time. For the next 7 days or the next 30 days, I'm going to do this consistently. There was a huge shift that occurred, and all of a sudden there was energy. Where there was previously exhaustion, it had now been alchemized, transmuted into joy, playfulness, excitement, tenacity. And since then, things have shifted in terms of how my mind works and how I'm creating things. So I share this with all of you to reflect on areas of your life where you have noticed exhaustion and where your initial instinct, and of course it makes perfect sense that your mind would do it this way, your initial instinct has been, ooh, here's exhaustion. This means I shouldn't do it. It seems counterintuitive not to listen to that. But when it comes to growth, there's always a new ceiling to break through. And it can't just be done through pure force, because some people do it with pure force. They're like, you know what, I don't care, I'm going to white knuckle my way through this, I'm going to go for it. That's where they burn out. The sustainable way to do it is doing that level of inner work, shifting the way your mind processes information, how it thinks of doing things, and then doing it in a way in which it's a long, slow burning fire. It's consistent, slightly outside of your previous comfort zone, but also not to the extent of white knuckling it to burn yourself out. And that's the sweet spot. So think of those areas in your life where you have noticed exhaustion, but it's exhaustion related to something that you want to accomplish, that you want to do, whether it's making more money or getting that relationship, overcoming your fear of talking to a man, talking to a woman, confronting somebody, right? When there's conflict. Notice those areas where there has been exhaustion and begin to think, if I could do this differently, if I could do this differently than the way I have been doing it, that is moving me closer to what I actually desire, which is I want to freely communicate with somebody even when there's conflict. I want to approach this man or I want to approach this woman and tell them like, hey, I like you and I want to ask you out, whatever it is. Or I want to approach my boss and ask for a raise. Think of and imagine with a visually, how could I do this differently? If I could do this better, what would better look like? And as your mind then, with its own creativity, generates images, sounds, words of what that looks like, notice what happens within you. Likely there will be a shift. And when this shift occurs, there's more energy that comes through. The exhaustion has been there not because you don't have enough energy. You have endless amounts of energy. Imagine it as though there's this divine source, call it God, source, universe, whatever it is that makes sense for you, your higher self. There's this infinite well of energy, and this energy is represented by like a golden light, golden fluid. And you are attached to this infinite well by a hose. Now that energy, that golden fluid, golden light is always running through. But when it hits upon some stucknesses in terms of old, outdated beliefs, holding patterns, pain points, the energy is going to illuminate and hit upon that. And when it hits upon that, it's going to set off a signal to let you know, like, hey, this is here. So, it could be anxiety, it could be depression, it could be a whole bunch of other sensations. In this case, we're talking about exhaustion. It'll hit upon that. And when that is cleared, just through the processes that I've shared with you, then that, imagine those blockages like rubble, pebbles, or grime inside a hose. When that is cleared, now that golden light, that fluid is just free to move through the hose. And now you get to direct that energy creatively, looking towards solutions, new ways of thinking, working, and doing things, new patterns of behavior. And now you're just expressing. This life force is flowing because life wants to happen through you. And whenever there's exhaustion in the way of where you like to go, the goals you want to achieve, the visions, and the values that underpin those goals, that's the place not to, you need to take more naps, or you need more off days, or you need to turn away from it. It's actually a sign to look a little bit closer, rearrange some things, and then notice what happens. That's when the life force energy starts to flow through, and you're living the life of an alchemist, shifting things, taking what was once dense and stuck and turning it into creativity. So the next time you notice that exhaustion in your life, or you can reflect on areas where there has been exhaustion, you want to move forward, but it's felt stuck. Try this process of reflecting, shifting some things, and notice what happens for you. And let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your stories. So thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I wish you all a beautiful day.